Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the drawing board. Hope you all are doing well. Episode 5, I believe now.
Yeah,
Uh
well,
Big
we actually have some.
milestone.
Yeah, we're getting some
Progress.
good good progress in here. If you guys don't know, we're your hosts here today. I'm Krish, and we have Mac or Mohammed or Mahmood, whatever you like to call him here. This is going to be a quick podcast. We're just going to be talking about just random stuff, as always. Honestly, no guests today, but yeah. Mohammed,
Just us.
I had a question. You went to Pakistan recently, right?
I did, yeah.
Uh, yeah. Tell me, what was your experience like?
Honestly, like this was it was like one of the shortest times I had in Pakistan. Normally when I go, it ends up being like a month, month and a half, sometimes it's even been 2 months. I only had like 9 or 10 days, but it was honestly like one of the best like vacations of my life. Man, it's one of the best like 10-day stretches of my life ever. Like I don't know what it
Yeah.
was about this one in specific. Maybe it was just the fact that it was like after 5 years and I hadn't seen my cousin in so long. But like honestly, it was so sick.
Does it feel like home still? Like when you go, is it easy to talk to people?
Yeah, I feel like it's easier now. Like last time I went, like all my cousins were telling me like you would come for like a month and a half, but you wouldn't start talking like you were comfortable with us until like the last week, right? And but this time they're like, oh, like you came and you were like actually like confident, like you were like able to talk with us and stuff. So which was nice because like normally I go and like I'm hella shy. This time it felt a lot better, like being able to go in, talk with everybody. But it just felt like there's like a bunch of people who like you have the opportunity to be close with and like or like just like friends or like family or whatever, and like we just don't get to talk to them very often at all. But like, so it's like such like I mean I don't know, it just feels like a really cool experience to go for a little bit and be able to reconnect with everybody.
After going, are you going to keep in touch with them? Like call and
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean, like I say every time that like I want to, but I feel
Yeah,
like
that's
this
common too.
time, yeah, I'm gonna like actively make an effort to like, try to keep in touch with everybody. Um, that's like I guess like social media. This is like one of the places where it actually feels like it's being useful. Like I feel like reaping the benefits that social media is meant to have of like being able to keep in touch like with group chats and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I was this big problem too. Like I like make great connections. Like people like I'll make friends that like at the time I'll think will be lifelong friends, but I'm so terrible at keeping up with them that it like just like turns into a dead friendship. Um,
Yeah, even with me, like I feel like if it wasn't for like like us playing League sometimes or like hopping on Discord or having like the Discord community, I feel like I would have lost touch with most of the people I knew from Fort Mac, and like I only would have like had kept talking to the people I lived with or some of the friends I made at UBC or whatever. Because
yeah.
I'm terrible with that as well.
Wait, a cool thing about Discord actually is like there's like people on voice, you can just hop in, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no like, hey, are you there? Like like when you're texting,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yo, what's up? Then you have to
Yeah.
wait for a response. I was talking to someone about this as well. Like I think that is probably the most detrimental part of like texting. Like when you're just saying, yo, are you there? Because like there's no urgency.
Like
Like you can just not
with one-on-one texting.
any texting. Like in a group chat, you're shouting into a void because it's basically like there's no incentive to instantly like respond in like texting at all.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Like
with
it
Discord, I
look
guess you can always just be like hop in voice chat, and then somebody could join if they feel like
right.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel like I kept up with like most of like the Discord guys by just like whenever someone's on there, I just hop in and say hi.
hmm Yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits of Discord. Which I think, by the way, Discord is like the most underrated social media platform ever. Like I think it clears everything else.
We sound like nerds.
No, we sound like nerds, but think about it. Like Snap is garbage. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I
Well,
think
Snap is bad. Like from like I think objectively, feature wise and like
mm-mm.
usability wise, it's bad.
I think Snap's all so like photographic media, right? Like
Okay,
on
the
iMessage, you're not taking a picture and sending it. That's like
no, no,
lame.
like the snap, like the actual like sending snaps is the best part of it. But most people don't utilize it in the way that like the benefits. Most people just like will send streaks or like just some like random snaps. You know what I mean? Like, but most people don't use like utilize it as a way of like making the communication more like colorful or like fun, right?
Mm. Oh yeah, that's true. I wonder if yeah, I don't know. I think it's a culture thing, if anything.
Culture, like what do you mean? Like
Like the culture is
within a
to
friend
just
group?
like yeah, like Probably like lots of people that just use Snap for like sending snaps back and forth.
Yeah, I feel like for an average user, Snap is just like a way that I mean like just to have communication that's like is casual and like they send snaps, keep streaks, whatever. They don't actually use it as like a proper like their main group chat is not on Snap. I feel like
Yeah. I had another question for you.
yeah.
It's a new year,
hmm
2023. What are the New Year resolutions?
Uh, honestly, I don't have any New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution
Oh,
is
it's
to
perfect.
no, no, I'm perfect. Yeah, no, but my actual resolution is to start doing this stuff that I say I'll do because I have a massive problem of like having a bunch of goals and a lot of things I'm interested in. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this, but then never actually following through on anything. So my New Year's resolution would just be to follow through on my previously set goals.
Um, okay, speak some of them into existence. What are the goals?
Like I've been saying I want to like start learning languages for the longest time. I think it's probably been like 2.5 years since I started, and like I've been on and off. Well, I say on and off. Like I'll start for like I started for like a week at one point, and then didn't do it for a year, and then started again for a week at another point, and then haven't done it again for the longest time. But now I'm starting again, which I mean, like I said, I want to learn Arabic and then French and then Spanish as well at some point. Right now, I'm starting Arabic again. I hopefully I'm going to be more consistent this time. New year.
There's
Um.
there's a cool browser extension on Chrome. I think it's called Toucan or Fluent, or I think they're two separate ones. But like
hmm
they help you, they like gradually change more and more of the web to a certain language that you choose, so that you can like
Really?
learn it. Yeah, you should use it because you use your computer often,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like chronically online.
right? Yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you? Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Um, I don't think I have any. I don't think I have any very exact
Well,
New Year's resolutions.
maybe a resolution about like anything you're looking forward to in the upcoming year. Excited for things you want, or
I
maybe
think
even like.
so. I think the last year was my year of like. It's not that. It's like it was the year of like nothing matters. Like it was
Right.
like the very like nihilistic. Like oh, so whatever I do like doesn't matter. Like low key, my life is meaningless.
Wait. Actually, like you were a nihilist last year.
Well, like internally, I was very much like I'll still do cool things that make me happy, but it was very
hmm
much like I'm just looking for dopamine, and then it turned out that like trying to help people gives me like dopamine, so I like work on that. But um, yeah, I was very much like if this doesn't go exactly as I planned, like it's fine, no big deal.
hmm
I think I'm coming out of that phase only because it's not a good way to live. I just found myself like looking back at my memories, and just because I had such a like waste view on the world that I just like wasn't having the human experience. Like the human experience is to be selfish. Like that's what I've determined. Like if you're
Wait.
not
Elaborate.
um like to experience the fullness of life, I
hmm
think you have to think that your life is worth more than it is. Um,
Wait. How's
or
that selfish though?
yeah, I guess it's not selfish necessarily.
Wait.
I mean
Are you
it's
like are you saying that like because you're talking about like nihilism and like not having meaning like so are you saying
yeah.
that you have to like attach meaning to things that might not that objectively not necessarily have
Yeah, yeah,
meaning?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I mean by selfish. Like you have to think your life is important. Like nihilistically or like objectively. Like not nihilism isn't wrong. Like objectively,
hmm
like it's really not that deep. But
hmm
if you keep thinking that, it's just no way to get the full human experience.
Now, this is also one thing like I never really understood about like Buddhist philosophy. Like I'm not like too familiar with it, but like the general premise of like not having um expectations or like having
Hmm.
connections with the world in terms of like I can't remember what the word they use is. Um, uh, what is it? It's like something causes suffering. Attachment, not having attachment to anything, right? But I feel
Right.
like attachment is like true. It is the root of all suffering, but it's also the root of all happiness and beauty at the same time, right? Like I feel like it's impossible in a way to be to experience the fullness of the human experience without being attached to things.
Yeah, like I'm confused. Actually, now that you bring it up, like why people even uh, aspire to like for this like enlightenment in Buddhism, where like
hmm
you're attached to nothing, because it certainly takes away from your experience as a human.
hmm
I don't. I feel it takes away from other people's experience as a human as well. Like, yeah, why do you think people even do that?
I mean, I guess the fundamental ideology again, and like I feel like we're so like not well versed on this. We could just be like shouting into the void, be completely wrong on everything. But
Yeah.
like, the main thing I guess comes from the idea of escaping suffering, right? And the fact that attachment is the root of all suffering. To eliminate suffering, you also must eliminate attachment.
Mm.
From my understanding, that's
There's no way that can be it. Like for as wise of a religion, like Buddhism or like even the religion I am, like Jain, like it's very much deeply rooted in this idea of um, like no attachment, no suffering, like eternal peace to the point of like you don't care what anything that happens. Like to say a story. So I'm not sure like, what the stories are in Buddhism, but in
hmm
Jainism, there's this like very popular story of this guy who was this guy who's meditating. He's now our god. In Jainism, your regular people can turn into like the equivalent of gods.
right.
And so he like sat there and he was meditating, and some farmer came and said, "Oh, watch my cow.
hmm
I'm gonna leave my cow here. I'm gonna go away. Make sure to watch him." But this guy was meditating like so. He was in this deep meditative state to the point where the cow left and this guy like didn't notice.
Right.
Um, and like when the farmer came back, he's like, "Yo, why did you let my cow go?" And he was so
Mm.
mad that he started like hurting him, man. Like he like this is also okay. I'll go into this later, but like he also started like hammering nails into his ears, et cetera, et cetera. And this guy just like wouldn't leave this meditative stance,
Yeah.
or like trance. Um,
hmm
and the idea is like, or the lesson that's supposed to teach is like when you're meditating or when you're devoting yourself to something so enlightened, nothing in the regular world, no desire, no responsibility trumps that. Um,
So the pursuit of enlightenment is in itself like the ultimate like it's such a I don't know transcendent experience that you like fall out of. I mean I don't even know how to word it, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, and it's not only that, right? He was meditating while he was getting nails hammered in his ears,
hmm
and so it's like you're when you're like meditating or like it's just saying like you should aspire to be above pain, to be above certain responsibilities, like all for eternal peace. There's some things or some core value that I guess lies in meditation that you can't give up. Um, yeah, I always thought about that and thought like why it was helpful for anyone to do this. But yeah,
Honestly, it's also possible that like within religion, like extreme ideals are set, and then from those practical steps, like that you can apply within your own life, are derived. Like for example, there's this one YouTuber named Dr. K. He's like done like he studied with monks and stuff. At one point, he's a Harvard psychiatrist, and he talks a lot about mental health and like his channel specifically is called Healthy Gamer, and like one of the main things that he talks about a lot is it's basically like the self-help principle of like, oh, it's not about the journey, it's not about destination, it's about the journey and how you can derive a lot of those from like Buddhist teachings as well, and like not being attached to the destination and how that helps you enjoy the process more and stuff like that. And so I think practically maybe that's one of the ways that it's actually helpful is not as the extreme ideal itself, but more of a like, I guess a watered down way you can apply it to your practical life.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Like all these stories, um, yeah, all these stories. I guess it like ends up being what values can you derive from it, and like if you were to apply it in your own life, are you gonna like benefit yourself and other people? And I guess usually the case is yes. Like most religions' teachings are like be kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's like pretty similar across the board
Animals.
a lot of the time.
But okay, isn't the crazy thing that in this story he got like nails hammered into his ears, and like what
hmm
is it in like Christianity? Like Jesus got like nails hammered into his hands. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he got crucified. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're like quite kind of similar, no? It's
So wait, is that like the main like creation story basically of your god in Jainism
of that god. There's
of that
like
god?
24 or 28.
Oh,
We call
okay.
them Tirthankars. Like it's like regular people who took like such enlightened steps that
hmm
like they became like a god. It's like basically this guy like when he was a boy he did this and then like that was his there's a bunch more stories about this one person as well, but like that was his like main thing. It's like, oh, like this guy's so enlightened. Like once he dies, he's like becoming God.
So where, I mean, I guess we're transitioning into a fucking theology podcast, but like, where did the principles of seeking enlightenment come from? Like within Jainism or like its adjacent religions? Like, how did people know that that to like try to seek this state of enlightenment?
I think, and so I haven't the deepest I've diven into this is like from just like talk conversations with like elders,
Uh
and
huh.
so I cannot be sure. But the religion is very much about peace, and so I think the ideology is that this enlightenment of not needing um, anything external to make you happy
Hmm.
is just a vehicle to ensure peace in the world. And like, there's some crazy rules, like like the equivalent of Jain nuns. They
Hmm.
they don't wear shoes because the shoes would
Wow.
increase the surface area of their feet, so they could kill more. They would kill more insects on the ground. Like they don't walk through grass because like grass is more like insects and bacteria than like asphalt, so they don't walk through grass.
Could,
Um,
couldn't the argument be made though that the suffering that they take on for like not wearing shoes or whatever is greater than the suffering that whatever grass or animal would feel because of the fact that they're not wearing shoes?
right, but the point is don't suffer. The point is you should be enlightened enough to not
Oh,
suffer.
so human beings are enlightened enough that they can escape the suffering, but like animals or like plants and stuff aren't. So you have to take care of them, basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Ah, okay.
There's some crazy
That's
rules that I never understood either. Like, or like, okay, so here's another one. Like in actual Jainism, like I do
mhm.
this for like 8 days a year, but
Right.
like like good Jains, like true Jains, like there's they don't eat spices in their diet. Like there's no spices because you shouldn't be eating food for flavor. Like you shouldn't be trying to drive enjoyment out of food. Food is just like sustenance.
Hmm.
So like the point is like you just eat bland food. Like you make it quick and you eat it. Like Jain nuns, they don't even make their own food. Like they have to go like ask other people for food. Um, I don't know what the asking other people for food thing is about, but like no spices at all is very interesting to me.
So that's still in the pursuit of like as much peace as possible within the world. Is that like the fundamental?
It's removing your need for external enjoyment, like material things giving you joy. It's removing that need, and I guess that is like the reason
I
for that
see.
is for peace. Yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it seems to be like pretty like what's it called? Consistent within the religion itself.
yeah, very
But yeah,
similar to
that
Buddhism.
yeah. I guess a lot of the like religions within India specifically have a lot of overlap in teachings and like origin stories as well, right?
Yeah, there must like there has to be because you know how Einstein made like the what is it like the
Theory of
general theory
relativity.
of relativity? Yeah,
Yeah.
like there has to be a general theory of religion where like you can actually like define where all these religions are connected. Um,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like within the Abrahamic religions, there's a very clear connection. Their stories are completely intertwined with one each other, and they
right.
acknowledge each other within their own scripture. So I mean, they can essentially be thought of as the same religion. And actually, Islam argues that they are the same religion. And like from the beginning, like
Oh wow,
you heard of Adam, right? Like like the story of Adam
Adam and
within
Eve. Yeah.
like within like the Bible. So it's like Islam argues that like all prophets that have ever come came with the message of Islam, but then the name itself might have changed and the teachings have got corrupted over time in certain groups. But the message fundamentally the message that the prophets came with was the same the entire time. So yeah, there's definitely
Whoa.
that linkage there, and then obviously within South Asia, there's a lot within India specifically, a lot of religions originated there. I mean, that already covers like the main chunk of them, right? So I guess the question would just be how those two, the Abrahamic and the I guess the Hinduism, Buddhism,
Is
associated religions linked.
I wonder what like religions are like in like Africa. Is it more like culture there or like
I'm not sure. I feel like a lot of Africa, or well, not even Africa, but a lot of South Asia, South America, and Africa had their religions lost post colonialism because a lot of them ended up just converting to one of Christianity or Catholicism, like like whatever they were colonized by.
oh
And then
yeah, that's
also like
true.
over time, like with areas being conquered, they would probably just convert to the religion of whatever the dominant army was. So a lot of those like minor religions were lost. But I think across the board, it usually just ends up being like human beings looking at some sort of unexplainable like phenomenon, whether it be an animal or the sun or the moon, and using it as like this entity that provides meaning, right? Like for
Yeah,
example, within like South America, when we learn about the Aztecs and stuff, how they would use like the eagle or the snake and like sun gods and like right. It's just in search of meaning.
damn. Religion is actually so cool. It's like, what's that saying? Like, if you want to, um, if you want to like affect people for a year, get a job. If you want to
Hmm.
affect people for a century, make a startup. If you want to affect people for like a millennia, like make a religion. Like, and it's like
I
very.
haven't heard that, but
I don't know if it's exactly that. It's something like that. It's like startup is like less basically like
yeah,
impactful than religion, which is
yeah,
quite interesting.
I get the idea. Wait, I mean, I guess it's supposed to be a shorter podcast, but we'll just go into it. Like, what is
Yeah.
your like overall like view of how religion should be approached? Because like,
Hmm.
I feel like there's two general camps. Like for me personally, I think of it as like th- there's like I guess a competition between religions to prove their legitimacy to you as a person, as a person who has the ability to believe in any given one of them. So, like
Hmm.
for example, Jainism or Buddhism or Hinduism would provide their proofs as to their legitimacy as the religion that God or some higher entity has given to the world. Islam would make the proofs, Christianity would make the proofs, and then one of them would be the true religion. And then I feel like other people see it as more of like a spiritual journey that you have through whatever like means. So, for example, like Jainism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, they all lead to the same higher power entity, God, in whatever way you imagine it, and then it's more of a spiritual journey. How do
Yeah.
you like approach religion?
I have a question before I answer. I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
so. In this competition-based like religion, where each religion is like fighting to prove that they're the correct one,
Yeah.
um,
In like a yeah.
why? So there's not many people that look into this though, right? There's not many people
Yeah.
who look at the proofs of everyone. Like it's usually like people who like their parents are a certain religion, so that they're a certain
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you think those people are betting that like their ancestors were the ones who just did the work, or um, like
Yeah. I
what do
mean,
you think about
I
that?
feel like that's the problem with most modern what's it called, like religion in general, is people don't really question their beliefs, especially if they live within a country that's predominantly that religion, or within a cultural like history where it's never been questioned. Um, like because like obviously a lot of times people like end up not actually caring much about their religion or knowing much about it at all, and to a point where like it's like they don't know why they believe it, they just know that they just follow the teachings because it's convenient. And for me, I feel like like that's not the way that I would like to approach it. Like for me, like I want to look at all of them and be like, okay, I want to actively choose to follow this religion, not just the fact that my parents were Muslim, therefore I'm going to be Muslim.
But like, it makes sense, right? To have this, to have to like throw your entire life into a certain um, way of being as a sign of trust and loyalty to your ancestors. There's something pretty cool about that. Uh, Thinking that your ancestors did all the work for you and they chose the right one, like believing in them.
I mean, I guess you could argue that, but at the same time, there's no reason to think that your ancestors did the work when you
Yeah,
yourself aren't doing the work either. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's so true.
I feel like like you can never really trust within religion, which is such like a personal like, and there's a lot of spirituality and stuff involved with it. Like the generation to generation, every generation has to rediscover the religion itself and re-believe in it, right? That there has to be like conviction brought forth by each generation. You can't just trust that your ancestors did the work and then follow it blindly, because I feel
Yeah,
like that leads to a lot of like, for example, like within Islam, like there's a like arguments within like the Islamic community that like the biggest problem that they face is the fact that like most people don't actually know why they follow religion. So like they'll just listen to like spiritual leaders who say that the Quran will say something, or that the Prophet said so and so, when in reality it's like they're just saying it to try to get some personal benefit, right? And then same argument within like a lot of like Catholicism and like you've seen those large what are they called, like the mega churches where like the pastors will like have yachts and like super jets and stuff like that.
Wait,
And like
what? No, I haven't seen those. What?
no, there's like this entire like sub community of, I believe it's Catholicism, where like they're like these super like what's it called, celebrity priests, or like not priests. Are they priests? Yeah, they're priests. But like and they'll just collect literally billions of dollars in donations from like their followers, and they'll just use it to buy yachts and like private jets and mansions. It's kind of crazy. And like those
Interesting.
people, like they just follow the religion because they think they're on the right one. But then if they like would actually look into it, they realize that their leaders aren't like, not to say that Catholicism is completely wrong. I'm not saying the teaching of the religion itself is incorrect, but I'm saying those people are using their religion to their own benefit instead of teaching what their book or whatever actually argues.
Well,
I don't know.
I didn't know this. Okay, wait. To go back to your question, I'm okay. For context, I'm not too religious.
Hmm.
I I very much enjoy being in religious communities, though. I think like the traditions are
Yeah.
fun, the community is great. A lot of like the traditions either are about community or like demonstrating a certain sense of like willpower and like
Hmm.
discipline, which I
Yeah.
think are all great values to embody. I think it's definitely the spiritual option that you're talking about, though. I think you explained it really well one time. Like when we were very much younger,
Hmm.
it's like all you're doing is placing a bet that the religion you follow is the one, is the correct one, and
Hmm.
in most cases like or like placing a bet that it's the correct one, so that like the rest of your life, further than what you can envision, will be amazing, and for most religions even the life afterwards, like your
Yeah.
afterlife.
Hmm.
Yes, definitely spiritual. Like what are your thoughts?
Wait, so going back to the placing the bet part. So 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 within that, would you not want to make sure you have the best odds if you think there is an afterlife, that you would get a favorable, um, I guess, outcome in the afterlife? If you believe that the religions are mutually exclusive, right?
Yeah, like yeah, I guess, but there's no way to determine this. Like there's no way to determine
Yeah, I
what your
mean, like
best bet is.
there is. It's pretty hard. Like the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that it is almost impossible in a lot of ways to say that one religion above all of the rest is 100% true, because within all religion there's always something that, well, this doesn't make sense, right? Like from my understanding, like even within Islam there's like there's like certain things that they say, all right, this is like a like a, what's it called, like a fundamental proof, basically, like this couldn't have happened without the intervention of God, or whatever, right?
Right.
And then because you believe in this, you should believe in these other things that don't necessarily make logical sense, but because you
Right.
believe in this thing, we're going to branch your other beliefs out from this. And I feel like most religions are going to like be have a similar structure, where like they'll have some fundamental proof of the religion itself. Oh, like this event happened, we can prove this happened in whatever way. Or they'll, or like, like for example within Buddhism, like people have reached enlightenment, and how would people have known to reach enlightenment if it didn't come from some divine entity, right? And the teachings from the divine entity, and then because of that, there's these other things you should also follow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. As for like, so do you think there's always in all religions just like unexplained things that you have to follow?
Oh, absolutely. Like, well, unexplained in that like they don't make sense to the average human, or not average human, but like like it can't make sense to humanity. Like for example, like there's one thing that I always like kind of question my parents on, is like, how is it possible for, like, say for example, like, because within Islam, generally speaking, people who are Muslim will go to heaven, and then people who aren't don't go, right? Or I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of like exceptions of like for
Yeah.
example, people of the book, so Jews and Christians also a lot of time end up in heaven and stuff like that. But basically, I was like, how is it fair? Somebody like born randomly by chance into like a Muslim family, lives his entire life and doesn't, and specifically doesn't think about his religion at all, right? Like they do like the average, how the average person both follow religion. Basically, they don't think too much about it. My family was Muslim, my family was Hindu, whatever, and they live their entire life following those teaching, and they die. Okay, so so Muslim person does that exact same like individual, basically, but he's born into a Hindu family. He lives an entire life, again, not thinking about his religion, and he'll die. So they've done the exact same thing. The only difference is the one was lucky, I guess, and was born into the correct household and will end up going to heaven. For me, that doesn't make sense at all. I feel like it's like it's impossible to reconcile the fact that this person will end up going to heaven just because of the fact that they were lucky and born into the right household or into the right religion.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like there has to be a
And that's just one example of things, right? And there's a bunch of those. But then like
which is why I definitely think there has to be some unifying theory between all religions. Like it does make sense, right? If there's some higher being, for like if you're just born in a geographic area, like certain geographic area, you have less of a likelihood to go to heaven.
yeah, obviously
It
it
does
doesn't
seem
make
very
sense,
fair or
right?
equitable.
I mean, again, I'm not a scholar and I have not really ever talked to a scholar about this specific thing, so maybe they have some answer. I find it difficult.
But you've read the Quran, right? Like multiple times.
Yeah, but like the Quran is like a pretty like it'll have answers, but not to like extremely philosophical niche questions, right? Because like 99% of people who are Muslim will never like question it to this point or like care enough to question this point. So I feel like this would be more of like a question for a scholar, somebody who like has not only read the Quran but has read like adjacent texts and really understands the religion on a fundamental level.
So is that the role of a scholar to like find other texts that kind of give provide
Well, not other
context?
texts, but like to like study the Quran within the context of like within Islam. There's these things called hadith, which are essentially the sayings of the Prophet. And right after the death of the Prophet, there were like a bunch of people who went around and asked the companions of the Prophet, okay, like did the Prophet like tell us some things that he said or whatever, right? And he'd be like, oh, like he said this, and then they'll go and corroborate that with like 10, 20 other people, make sure there's like a strong chain of connection, that there's no the potential benefit for this person to lie and say that they did hear him or whatever. And essentially, there's like these books of hadiths compiled of the sayings of the Prophet. So reading the Quran within the context of those, talking with other religious scholars, discussing ideas, yeah, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I think in the end it it is a bet. Like I think most people just bet that like their bet is either like um what is it called? Like it's like a complacent. No, not complacent. It's implicit. Like it's an implicit bet in like their ancestors that they
Yeah,
just like found the right one. Other
yeah,
people like for you, I'm sure like you're pretty religious, right? You'd say.
yeah, fairly religious.
Yeah, for you, I'd say like you kind of treat it as the competitive like way of like you try to like look into most other religions.
Yeah.
Um, but there's definitely
And to be
I
fair,
guess
like even for me as a person who like actively looks at it, and I'd say I'm like maybe like five, like fifth or sixth percentile in terms of like actually looking into religions across all religious people. But even for me, like say hypothetically, I was to say, okay, like I'm intellectually convinced that Islam is incorrect, or say I was intellectually convinced that all religion is wrong. Like it
right.
still doesn't make any sense for me to ever leave the religion because of how much familial and like 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 how much baggage that comes with in terms of like cutting ties with
Yeah,
family,
it's true as
losing all
well.
cultural collection, losing the religious community that you're talking about, which again like there's so much like good that comes from it, even like outside of like the actual intellectual pursuit of finding the correct religion, that just doesn't make sense for most people to ever change.
Yeah, I was actually thinking like it's really really good for a kid to have religious parents. Like I can't think of any like negatives unless it's like a very strict religion that's like kind of oppressing to the kid at times. But um, like I would never go back and wish my parents were religious. I think I became a better person for it by far. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree generally that it's like I feel like religion has the potential to have a net positive impact on the world. I feel like historically it's pretty hard to argue that it has had a net positive. There's a lot of atrocities that have been committed in the name of religion, but I feel like
It's also
when
true.
done correctly, it is a net positive. I feel like that's more a problem of ideology in general and people being ideologically driven rather than being like human driven, that causes those atrocities. But I feel like yeah, I'd agree. In general, religion is a net positive.
Yeah, I wonder if there's gonna be another like religion based war. There's like there's like shootings and stuff.
Uh,
Probably
I
like
I
religious
feel like
based.
within like the Western world, I find it very hard. I feel like within the Western world, within the next century at the most, we'll have above an 80% atheist population, or a practically atheist population in terms of like they'll stop being religious with their practices within like the rest of the Eastern world, I guess. I think we'll see the similar trend, but more slow again because I think people will stop finding a reason to follow their own religions and be like, well, why am I doing this?
That kind of sucks. Like like it's logical for sure, but like
Hmm.
we're losing like a chunk of history.
Oh
Like
yeah,
so much history is rooted with religion. I wish,
yeah.
yeah.
That's one of the
Um,
saddest things, I guess, about like the progression of humanity is that we lose so many things. Like there's so much beauty lost, and it's inevitable. So there's nothing really to like get upset or angry about. But it is sad in a way that we lose so much history and art and culture just by the progression of society.
yeah. If you were to go back and live in one like time frame,
Hmm.
um, what time frame would you live in? Or like,
Oh,
and where geographically too? You have to
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good question. Honestly, I feel like if I was to do that, I would want to be born into that time frame without any knowledge of the modern world. Because I feel like
yeah.
with my knowledge of how convenient the modern world is, I would be so depressed and so like I don't know, just uncomfortable in any other time frame that it would be impossible. But if I was to be born into any time frame in history, oh wow, it's difficult. I don't know, maybe just like the Enlightenment era, like the Renaissance, living in
Yeah,
like Iraq, Baghdad, or something like that.
yeah. Um, yeah, probably go. I probably go Renaissance too. Probably Europe. Um, it just seemed like there's so much stuff going. Like there's no way you could have possibly ever been bored at that time. Like there's always something to do.
I feel
Like,
like, honestly, I'd argue the opposite. I feel like life would have been really monotonous for the average person. It's just there were a few standout thinkers or like philosophers or scholars, I guess, that ended up doing a lot of the development. And for the average person, especially one who wasn't like intellectually driven and like actively trying to pursue becoming like an intellectual in some way, their life was not that much different during the Renaissance than it was in any other time period. And most people were still like just farmers or like you know, cattle herders or whatever.
but when a lot of so a lot of these intellectual people were had other jobs. Most of them I think were lawyers. But they'd come home and then do all this. I think mathematicians were lawyers or something like that. But they'd come home after a day job and then become the greats that we know them as today. And they weren't known as greats in their time. But it just seemed like you always had something. Like it seemed like even if you had a day job, there's so much benefit to being curious. Like these days, I feel like there's a lot of dead ends when you're curious,
Yeah, true.
which is discouraging.
Yeah, I guess there was just so much to discover back then that like if you looked into any one field for long enough, you're gonna make some sort of like fundamental discovery within that field, right? So like if you're a mathematician, you're gonna make some sort of fundamental discovery if you're living in the 1600s, right? If you're a chemist, you're gonna make some sort of fundamental discovery. If you're in medicine, you're gonna make some sort of fundamental discovery just because there's so like the entire field is basically completely unexplored up until this point, right?
Or I would go back to Mayan periods as
Mm,
well.
the
Like
Mayans.
yeah, see what they were up to. Like they were just on another level. Or any society that we know very little about that just
Hmm.
seems super high functioning. There's a couple like them. Mine's just the first one that comes to mind, but um
Yeah, ancient Egypt would also be really cool.
or oh yeah, Egypt would be sick.
But to be
Um,
honest, like if I had the option to go back in history, like go like back in time or go forward in time, I'm taking go forward in time 100 times out of
whoa.
100. Oh, well, like
And you can't come back.
to be born in that time period, I guess. Like the ability to like I guess explore the cosmos and and see humanity spread out across like galaxies. I feel like it's such a cool prospect. Like for me, like that's the reason. Like like for me, like for just like a bit of a tangent, but like the Star Wars movies themselves kind of suck, right? But the thing that I feel like makes them so appealing is this like this is awe that's presented in front of you of like this potential that one day humanity will be spread across multiple galaxies and will be traveling intergalactically and there will be so many subcultures and so many different languages and there's so much like beauty and so much like of the human experience to explore within that's quite limited in retro and like relatively speaking right now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It would be cool to there's there's two ways to think about it, right? Like you can explore outwards, which is I think we talked about this on the podcast actually, but to reiterate, you can explore outwards, which is galactic, which it sounds really cool. Like we don't
Yeah.
know anything about that, right? Like
Yeah.
it, it seems like a lot of work, in my opinion. Like I with not many benefits.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess also after a certain point it would be kind of boring. It's like, oh, we found another planet covered in ice and diamonds. I'll add it to the list. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
right now, I guess we're at the frontier of it, so it's really appealing to us. But in 10,000 years, might be like, oh, I'm a lot more interested in doing something else.
yeah. And the other is to explore inwards, which is like, oh, like take a look at society, um, like kind of like dissect the brain, see what's going on there, like look at markets, a lot of stuff that like probably lots of insights left in that too. To me, like the latter seems more interesting. Uh,
Yeah, I feel like the latter will never go away because I feel like every generation has to rediscover the wisdom and the lessons that the previous generation learned within their time alive. Like for example, like you can read like a philosopher's book from like you can read like Marcus Aurelius Meditations and like literally everything he says will apply to you in some way. Like he
have you
lived
read
in a
it?
I haven't got a chance yet, but like I've read quotes and like excerpts, and like it seems like literally every single thing he says in some way applies to the modern human existence. And that's also why like this is another thing that is kind of like an axiom I have, I guess. I feel like advice is pretty useless most of the time because
Yeah, I agree.
I feel
I
like
agree.
advice is useless because most of the stuff you learn will come from experience and just living, and then you realize, oh, like this is something that like you this is something that I should do, or I should believe in, and then like you'll realize that like you've heard the same advice 100 times, 1,000 times before, but it doesn't click until you actually experience it for yourself and you discover it for yourself.
Exactly. And most, okay, that's true. The other thing about advice is like most advice that you're given is one-sided, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's like, oh, always make sure that like you're looking out for your friends and your loved ones more than yourself.
Hmm.
But like the other like side always exists in the same form of like of logic. There's probably some idiom that's like, oh, like even though you love your friends, you gotta make sure you're okay first to like
Yeah,
be the best. Like
100%.
there's always like two sides to every single piece of advice. So it just
I,
seems so useless
I think I've
strategies.
probably seen like self-help YouTubers will make a video of one side of the advice and then maybe a week later make the other side of the advice. And if you look at the videos like independently, they completely contradict each other. But I mean, it's advice nonetheless, right?
Yeah,
And the thing is, neither side of the advice is incorrect completely. It's just like it's like advice is not wisdom, and like you can't get wisdom from watching YouTube videos or having people tell you.
yeah. The true best advice is it depends. But like that's so
Yeah.
waste. Like if you tell someone that like they're not gonna learn anything, maybe you should just like find the other.
There's this one really good Naval quote. It's here. Let me just look it up one sec. Yeah. Knowledge is discovered collectively, and wisdom is rediscovered individually, which I think sums it up perfectly,
Oh, whoa, I think woke.
right? Because
Uh,
wisdom is like those like those advice things that every
right.
person like rediscovers within their own lifetime, and the knowledge obviously we discover that collectively. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, bro. This was a really short podcast. Actually, I think it's
Uh,
probably one of my favorite ones. Though, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I enjoy this a lot.
And we didn't talk about neurotech. So huge,
Yes,
huge.
huge dub.
Yeah. Oh, wait, to end it off, I didn't even say what my New Year's resolutions were. I was giving context. I think my New Year's resolutions are to figure out my why. Like, um, I think I think you should do this every like 1 or 2 years. But like,
Hmm.
it's very easy. I think it's very easy for me to get caught up in like doing things and then forget like why I'm doing it, even though it seems fun and like it seems very like aligned with whatever I'm trying to do. And so
Yeah.
like I think taking a second, like go back, like, oh yeah, okay, let's like reset. Why am I doing this? And then I think it'll give a lot of clarity on like other things I want to do in the future and like what things I should stop doing now. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my one
I used to be a
resolution.
journaling hater, but like journaling is actually it
Yo,
goes so hard.
writing's so OP.
Writing in general, yeah,
It's like my one prescribed medication to anyone that's feeling lost.
100%.
Um, yeah. Okay. Any
All
final
right.
thoughts, Mac?
No, that's everything for me, I guess.
We should start calling you Zepha on the
Safe?
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Zafe.
were talking about this for context, I guess. We were talking about this earlier, and I was saying that like I wish I had gone by my middle name since from grade one or kindergarten, because everybody else in my family and all my cousins and everything call me Josefa, and I think it sounds like it's a way cooler name, and like his Mohammed is like just so common. I mean, I don't mind it that much. I'm not like self conscious about it, but I just feel like it'd be cooler.
Zafe. Dude,
Anyways, wait, you want to start off?
we're gonna be listening to this podcast in 20 years, okay?
Yeah.
Imagine how funny it would sound if you actually switched your name to Hazefa, and we're just like, and then like you're like, oh
Like
yeah,
we
this is the
captured
first
the
time.
moment that I did it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? Okay, from now on, whenever I meet somebody new and they ask me what my name is, I'll say Josefa.
Okay. Bet. Nice, nice,
You
nice.
need to hold me to that.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I'm
I
gonna
will.
get
It'll be
flamed.
hard.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.